We are starting today's episode off with something quite exciting. One of my favorite things to do in the middle of the season here, and that is our initial draft preview. We're going to take a look at the first 5 or 6 prospects in this class that I've got scouted here at 100% and take a look at their games. And we're going to start with the number 1 overall prospect, J.R. Holloway, the forward out of Texas Tech, who really excels mostly as a shooter. The 20-year-old player was the focal point of Texas Tech, the season's not over yet, and Texas Tech has been a really good team. He deals mostly on the perimeter, not much of an interior guy, and just kind of contrasting him to the number 1 pick last year, Sidney Lowry. He's not as athletic either or as much of a perimeter guy. Sidney Lowry was more of a wing. This is definitely a forward. He's listed as small forward, has played there all year at Texas Tech, and there is some discussion kind of depending on what team he goes to as to whether or not he'll stick a small forward or if he'll be more of a power forward for the team that drafts him. And I think he's a really exciting player. Our scouts say his potentials will only B, but his consensus potential is A, so I think our scouts might be a little bit wrong on this one. I mean, he is athletic, but he's more of a strong athlete. He's not very quick. He's more of a smooth mover on the court. Defends a little bit better on the interior than he does outside, and so I think if we were to end up, snagging the number 1 overall pick, J.R. Holloway would be somebody that we would probably project to play power forward, not only because we need that position more, but just because I think that's a more natural fit here for J.R. Holloway. The number 2 player on the draft board is guard out of Gonzaga, Christian Davidson. Now, the one thing that comes out of the mouths of scouts with Davidson is upside. This guy has the highest ceiling in the draft according to most scouts, but of the guys at the top of this draft, he is by far the furthest away. He has yet to really show much consistency in his play, but at the same time, he can kind of do whatever there is to be done on a basketball court. He's shown flashes of being a great defender. He's shown flashes of playmaking. Sometimes he's out there like Klay Thompson, just drilling from deep, but the consistency isn't there, and many think it will take time for Davidson to really hit, and there's a big risk that he might just not hit in general. But if this guy does hit, you're getting maybe the best player in this class, and so definitely the boom or bust prospect in this class. He is somebody who projects to only be 69 overall by our scouts. For a guy, that's projected to go so highly, that's not really what you'd expect. Our scouts say his potential is a little bit overrated. His consensus potential is A+, so our scouts are saying that the top of this class might be slightly overrated in their potential, but he has a very moldable game. Other than post defense, he's at least in the C's everywhere, despite only being, a 70 overall. But he's going to be a guy that eventually hits the 90s. A lot of those things are going to be very, very high, and he can kind of be a do-it-all player. He's listed as a shooting guard / small forward here, but I think he is somebody that, if we were to draft him, would probably play more like a combo guard role for us. The third player in this class, early on in this process, is considered to be Jerry Childress, the shooting guard out of Notre Dame. And this player really puts the shooting in shooting guard, projected by many to be the best shooter in this class from beyond the arc. He can really score inside too for his size. He's a little bit undersized for shooting guard at just 6'4", 190 pounds. Defensively, he's nothing to write home about, but he's not necessarily going to be a liability in that area. But what most scouts love about Childress is that he does not have to have the ball in his hands to be an effective player. But if you want to give him some sets and get him some on-ball reps, he can handle those too. This is a guy that projects to be a certified scorer at the next level and is a player that is likely to go top 5 in the upcoming class. Here, that A+ 3-point scoring, really his calling card here. Not much of an athlete, but he has great potential. His consensus potential is A-. Our scouts actually think he might have A+. If you go, he has 5 badges. That's something we haven't been talking about very much so far. Christian Davidson has 0 badges and J.R. Holloway has 2. He has all NBA upside, and that is something that's very hard to pass up. Looking at the ceiling and floor now for these other players that we've already previewed, just because I don't want to skip them. Christian Davidson has Hall of Fame upside. J.R. Holloway also has a ceiling of all NBA. His floor is starter. Coming in at number 4, kind of in the consensus, is Philip Barrett, the 2-guard out of Ohio State. The second 2-guard we've seen in this class. More of a combo guard. This is much more of an on-ball type player here. Philip Barrett, he excels really in the mid-range and kind of getting with his dribble to the spots that he likes and knocking down the shots. Very confident player. If you ask him, he's the best shooter in this class. Not Jerry Childress, but it just seems that the numbers favor Childress a bit, but you will not see Barrett pass up many shots. He is very confident in his skill set. I think to get the most out of Barrett, you probably have to maybe turn him into a point guard later with his playmaking, but I don't know if he's quite as good of a passer. He's an excellent athlete. His potential is there. IQ is not great, but I think the allure of maybe getting this player and turning him into a point guard is certainly there. He has 2 badges, slippery off ball and unpluckable. Nothing too great there. He also has all NBA upside. Several players with this kind of upside at the top of this class. And then of course Christian Davidson with even Hall of Fame upside. The next guy we're going to be previewing here is Iowa center Gus Miles. 22 years old, is one of the older prospects, but because of that, is thought to be one of the more pro-ready prospects here, but that doesn't mean just because he's pro-ready that he lacks the upside. He is your stereotypical interior force kind of center with A+ projected rebounding, A post defense, A- scoring inside. And even stretch that out to mid-range a bit with our scouts projecting to have a B mid-range shot, but not going to be much of a perimeter defender, not going to be much of a passer or a 3-point scorer. Very much so your old school kind of build, kind of a very similar build that we got with AC Stevens in the last draft. It's just that he has more upside. Our scouts project him to have A upside. His consensus is A- right now. He has 3 badges that are going to help him be a really good rebounder in the league, and he has all-star, so you're probably thinking it's more in that A- B+ range. Probably not the solid A that our scouts are projecting him right now, but this would be a pretty good pick. Next up on the preview docket is UNLV forward Gregor Hammonds, 22 years old, another one of the older prospects in this draft. Now this is your stereotypical 3-level scorer build. The offense has run in his 3 years at UNLV through him relentlessly. He has been one of the leading scorers in the nation now 3 years running. Also one of the highest usage players in the country. This is a guy who has kind of stayed in the draft because there are some questions as to what his upside really is, but despite that, he's projected to go high just because it's hard to have that much production. As we see, I accidentally have a clip of Philip Barrett here in his highlights. I like to play these prospects against each other, and sometimes I assign the clips to the wrong person. But anyway, with Gregor Hammonds, you're getting a bucket, basically. Like I said, the potential, we only have his potential projected at C+. His consensus potential is B, but bucket getter, professional bucket getter, that's what he projects to be at the next level. He has no badges, and he's age 22, and his ceiling is actually just starter. So out of these guys that are kind of right now in the top 5 or 6 in the class, I think Hammond's probably my least favorite of them. And then there's one more guy I want to preview. Currently, he's not projected to go in the top 10, but I think he might sneak into it by the time, sorry, not in the top 5, but I think he might sneak into it by the time the draft comes along. And that prospect is Andre Stevens, the big out of Virginia, played power forward for them this season, 19 years old, is a freshman. There are questions as to whether he's a better fit at power forward or center. He's ranked anywhere between 10 and 6 by these draft ranking websites, but he projects to maybe be the best player in the first year of this class. Our scouts project him to be an 80 overall right off the rip. Doesn't have a ton of really big strengths, and one of his big selling points is that he doesn't have a ton of weaknesses, but in a year where it's very clear that we need somebody to come and help us next year, I like Stevens, and where he's ranked right now, and we're between 10 and 6, I really think there's a good chance this player is going to end up being a member of the Nashville Sound by the time the draft comes along. He's can score inside the arc really well, has the ability to hit some threes, although that's certainly not his strength right now. Good interior defender, good rebounder, excellent athlete. The reason that he's maybe going to be available a little bit later outside of the top 5 is his limited upside. We've seen a lot of guys with all NBA potential. If you look at his upside, as you can see, it's only all-star, but that's better than a guy like Gregor Hammonds. I think by the end of the draft, he'll for sure be going ahead of at least Hammonds, probably even like Christian Davidson. Even though he has a Hall of Fame ceiling, just that starting point being such a low overall, I feel like he's probably going to drop a little bit. He has 5 badges, and the forward from Virginia is definitely somebody I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on as we near the draft. But previewing the draft is not the only thing we're doing in this episode, as a major surprise coming out of Milwaukee, superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo has officially requested off the team. Taking a look at what the Bucks have done this year, it does not look pretty for this team, as they have the second worst winning percentage in basketball this year. And while you may look at this record and immediately think Giannis has been injured this year, that is correct. Giannis was injured, but he's only missed 2 of the games for this team this season. The vibes are at an all-time low in Milwaukee, and with 2 years left on his contract, the Greek Freak has requested out. What made this Bucks trade for Giannis complicated is that the Bucks do not own many of their own picks, and so they valued prospects over picks theoretically in this trade. They wanted at least 2 high-end prospects and were willing to sacrifice maybe a pick or 2 from the trade offer to get those prospects, because they needed somebody that could come in and contribute early in their rebuild, because they wouldn't have their own picks. So after many calls were given to the Bucks, many offers, the deal for Giannis was agreed on, and there are a lot of moving pieces in this deal. Giannis would be going to the Detroit Pistons, who feature, if I can just for one moment, we'll remove Isaiah Stewart for just a moment here. Kawhi Leonard, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, and Davion Mitchell will be the core of this team alongside Giannis. A much better situation than he's had in Milwaukee, and this trade puts them from kind of co-contenders with the Cleveland Cavaliers to a step above them for sure. And this works for the Bucks because they get Asar Thompson, a 2023 first-round pick, still has 3 years left on the deal, top 5 pick, uber athletic, and he gets a chance to kind of be the focal point of a rebuild. whereas he's kind of only gotten, sub 27 minutes in each of his first 2 years. He gets to be a big time part of the rebuilding project in Milwaukee. Alongside him is rookie Monty McDaniel, who has shown some promise here in his rookie year, shooting 35% from deep, 46% from the field for 8 points a game on just 14 minutes. His role projects to expand as he goes to Milwaukee. Bojan was added for salary filler purposes, but he is somebody that projects to add value to a team in need of a 3 on their roster, somebody that can hit threes as well, 39%. He is a two-way player. He's on an expiring contract, so he wouldn't be worth a ton, but he can score at all 3 levels. He can play make, he can defend. He's somebody that can really contribute to a playoff team, and so he will actually be going to the Mavericks, who we'll talk about in a minute. The Bucks will also get Isaiah Stewart for salary purposes and 2 unprotected picks, the maximum that the Bucks were able to trade due to protections. Sorry, that the Detroit Pistons were able to trade. And then the Bucks will be flipping Bojan, like I said, to the Mavericks for that unprotected first. And they'll also be getting another prospect here in Josh Green, with Kleber also being a salary dump for the Mavericks. And so the Mavericks looking to try to make a move in the West, improve at the 3 spot over Josh Green to Bojan Bogdanovic, and the Bucks kicking off a rebuild while the Pistons are putting their hat in the ring for the best team in the league. This will be the 3-team trade involving the Greek Freak. But that would not be the end of it, as Cleveland saw the new rival Pistons making the big move and wanted to make an upgrade of their own, being willing to part with the only first round pick they were able to in a trade here with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I don't think Cleveland could trade this pick in real life, but we're talking about 2K here, and we're talking about many years down the road. And so this will be the trade, and that is a full clean sweep here of the Bucks. Let's take a look at their new roster. Bobby Portis, their best player, Asar Thompson, Rui Hashimura, Daniel Gafford, Isaiah Stewart, Josh Green, Monty McDaniel. Really need a point guard, but I think McDaniel's secondary position is point guard, so we might play some of that for them. Shamet could as well. So here are the new look Bucks in a full-on rebuild, but their pick situation is much improved as well. And so it will be interesting to see how the Bucks rebuild. And this is pretty early in, a series for a team to go over a full makeover like this. But I mean, Giannis going 10-36 in a season with the Bucks. I think if that were the case in real life, he would ask for a trade out. And so that's what we do. I like to every season kind of take a look at the landscape, and if there's an obvious selling situation that obviously 2K would never do, I like to go in and make those myself. We're not going to do this every year. We've done it for the first 2 years. The Bucks were really the only team that I thought were obvious selling candidates with kind of an aging roster, and this is like the last year they could really get a lot of value, because both Giannis and Middleton would be expirings after this year, and so their value would be a lot diminished. And so I felt like this is the right time for the Bucks to sell. But I mean, we're now looking at the Cavaliers with Garland, Mitchell, Middleton, Mobley, and when he's healthy, where is he? Jared Allen. So with guys like Okoro off the bench, Buddy Hield, Javon Carter. This team, very, very good, but the Pistons might look even better with Cade, Ivy, Kawhi, Giannis, and Nick Richards at center. Do they have an injured guy, or is that actually their starting center? Looks like that is their starting center. So yeah, they got rid of Jalen Duren. They did not offer him his player option off of his rookie deal. So there you have I mean, imagine if they actually just picked up the option on Duren like they absolutely should have. I don't know why the Pistons hate Jalen Duren in 2K. It's a really, really weird thing. But that is an insane future matchup in the East. Philadelphia currently in that 2 spot, of course, with Harden, Maxey, and Joel Embiid as their big 3. I feel like they're not quite as deep. And I tried to even look up a trade for like maybe Philadelphia to get Chris Middleton. There was just no way for it to happen. It was Cleveland was really the only contending team that I felt like would be willing to give up much of anything for Chris Middleton, because I feel like they've got to feel like they're a championship team this year. And after seeing that move by Detroit, I feel like they'd be under a little bit of pressure to make a move of their own. They've got to, get Donovan Mitchell to want to come back because his contract is towards the end as well. He's got 2 years left. And so they gotta convince him to stay. And I think building this contender, the top 2 race in the East, is very interesting. It's funny that we're not even talking about a team like Boston, who you'd honestly think was a contender. And to come to playoffs, I wouldn't count them out at all, even though they are currently just the 8th seed. I think this East is looking insanely deep this year, and going to be probably insanely deep for the future. So it's going to be tough for us, I think, to crack the top of this conference, unless a lot of players shift teams in the next season or 2. And the last thing we'll do before we kick off the gameplay portion of this episode is we'll take a look here at the All-Stars for this year 2 squad, with Nikola Jokic and Giannis being the captains. Jokic, Steph, Dame, Embiid, and KD. Starting on one end with LeBron, Luka, JT, and Darius Garland. The starters on the other end: SGA, AD, Zion, Sabonis, Tyrese, Kyrie Irving, and Evan Mobley making his first All-Star appearance here. In the reserves with Ja Morant, Donovan Mitchell, Kawhi Leonard, LaMelo Ball, Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, and Bam Adebayo. No real surprises, and only one first-time All-Star in this group. Now we're going to get to a part here in the episode where we're going to hop into some games. And for this episode, we're going to be doing it a little bit different than what we've seen so far this season. And we're going to do kind of the equivalent of the critical situations, and then will be the show where I'll start simcasting these games. And if we get a game that's close, kind of like we have right here with 4 minutes left, right around 4 minutes or so left in a game, if it is close, we will hop in and finish it out. So let's start with the San Antonio Spurs. Now, there was a comment last episode about how we're going to bench Livingston. We should put him in the G League and help his development. And I did end up doing that for this episode. So we'll see if that helps him at all. But if I'm being honest with Livingston, I don't know if I'm even going to bring him back next season. And yes, I know, people improve and he'll get maybe some badges and some increased ratings. But I just think a position we didn't talk a lot about in this episode, but I will talk about when we do our full draft preview, is the point guard position. I think I'd rather just take another shot because I think it'll just work out better for our squad here to maybe move a different direction from Livingston. He's kind of a fun player. I just don't know if he's a great fit for us, as that is an awful shot here with a minute and a half left to go. You're hoping for a better shot than that as you're down 4. Wembanyama spinning into a 3-pointer on the other end. Missed that shot. Lowry with the ball. Trying to go to town on Anunoby, but can't get anything. We're going to end up taking another Zaire Williams 3, and somehow we got a worse shot than we did the last possession. Fouling Matisse Thybulle here. Trying to get a bad shooter on the line, and it works for us there on his first attempt. Second attempt is good. Got to get a better possession here. Want to see Sidney Lowry do something with it, and he's had the ball in his hands. He just cannot get by OG Anunoby at all, and Another Zaire Williams shot is pretty much going to wrap this game up. We'd play the fouling game, try to extend this game, but it wouldn't help us at all. So we'd lose 98-91 to Wembanyama and the Spurs here in our first of our critical situations games. Did not like what I saw in the final possessions here. Of course, I like getting the ball in Lowry's hands. I just felt like I'd rather see him try to do more with it than just getting terrible shots from Zaire Williams. And he was 1 for 13 in this game. As you can see, Livingston's still on the roster at this point. It would be after this game that I would assign him to the G League. Now here, a second game against the Suns. This one's not particularly close, but we have a chance to pick up a win here, which I think is a pretty big deal, considering we have but 5 of them here on the season. And the Suns are also a team that could make a 9-point comeback in 4 minutes for sure. They have the talent. This possession hasn't been going great for them, but they'll ultimately get the basket. Getting up to 100 points. Brown trying to go inside on Jalen Brunson, draws himself a foul on that drive. Missed the first free throw, though. Not a great start for us holding on to this lead. Brown's second free throw does drop down. Booker off the high screen, hits the shots, making it look easy. Lowry with it now. Had trouble separating from OG Anunoby, but Booker's not quite as good a defender. This time he gets to the lane and finishes the floater. Booker splitting defenders, getting to the rim. This guy is such a good scorer. And every time we've played him on the channel, both 2K23 and 2K24, he's been a tough man to stop. And Thorpe stopped on that play. Durant had an open lane to the basket, and he pulled up and gifted us a stop there. Another pick and roll. Cedric Thorpe this time able to finish it off. Got a cleaner look that time around. Booker scores again. He is trying to keep the Suns in this ball game. Thorpe. No, what are we doing, man? That's what I'm talking about. Some of these late game possessions are maybe giving a glimpse as to why this team has been so bad. We need to be... We just showed it. We had 2 pick and roll possessions, ball in Lowry's hand. I mean, there he turns it over, but I'd rather see Lowry go through growing pains and mistakes than just feed our backup center a post touch or Zaire Williams a catch and shoot 3, which he misses. Look at what the Suns are doing. Every single possession, it's been Booker or Durant with the shot, and they've come back here in the final 4 minutes of this game. It's just a 1-point ball game. Here, Lowry, ball in his hands, and we get the basket. This is exactly how I want the team to be performing in late game situations. I want to live or die by Sidney Lowry, man. He's going to be the focal point of this rebuild, and so I want him to get all these late game reps. And there the Suns decide to go away from one of their stars for that shot, and again it's a miss. Brown trying to score over Brunson, but he missed it. It's uncanny how in these final 4 minutes, if it's one of the team's best players taking the shots, they're making pretty much everything. If it's anybody else, they're missing pretty much every shot. Just goes to show you how you should be running your offense in the final few minutes of a close game. Brown. Another trip to the free throw line here in these final minutes of the ball game. This time he hit his first free throw. Would really love for him to go 2 for 2, and he can do just that. Phoenix with a timeout. Coming out of the timeout, Durant with the ball kicks to Booker. He's going to get a high screen. Down to 12 seconds left. He decides to go inside the arc, and he missed the shot. Give is to Bruce Brown quickly, and he's got a chance to really put this game away. And with that free throw, looks like Nashville will be coming out of this game with the 6th win of the season, which is obviously a lot later than you want to come up with this 6th win, but when they're so rare, you can treasure them just a bit more, and especially coming up against a team like Phoenix now. I think it's very well documented how much this team struggles with depth. Their bench is probably worse than ours, which is saying something, but a team kind of with the star power of Booker, Durant, and now Jalen Brunson in this series. It's a tough win regardless. Baldwin would lead us in scoring today. Lowry with 17, 5, and 3. Zaire Williams, a much improved performance from what he gave us last time. Now we've got ourselves a 3rd close game. We are down by 5, just over 4 minutes left in this game. Can we make the comeback? Lowry gets the scoring going in this period. This time he's defending Anthony Edwards, and he did an excellent job of it, helping force that turnover. This time finds Duncan Robinson, but he was just inside the 3-point line. Likes to take his shots from outside the arc. Wide open 3, top of the key for Josh Okogie is good. Back up to 6 points for the Timberwolves. We get a Jalen Johnson attempt here. Fairly clean look, but couldn't hit it. And Anthony Edwards this time with some space off the screen. Makes it 8 points. Timberwolves lead. We got to get something going here quickly. Brown awaits the Thorpe screen and hits the shot off the dribble. Nice looking 3-point attempt from Bruce Brown. Edwards, no good, but Gobert comes flying in. I've liked the defense that Lowry has played on Anthony Edwards. You just can't allow that in. And Lowry on the spinning layup attempt. That ball just sat there at the top of the rim. And then Anthony Edwards gets this to a double-digit lead. Could be the dagger in this game, but we're not giving up quite yet. Bruce Brown scores inside, down to 8 points. Gonna play some full court pressure here. And we get the turnover. Up to Sidney Lowry. Pulls up from the free throw line and hits again. Back to a 2-possession game with just over a minute left. Lowry defending Anthony Edwards. And another stop. This guy's been playing excellent defense. Sure, Edwards has scored a couple of times, but he's forced several misses as well. With the shot clock winding down, we're feeding Bruce Brown in the post for one of our final possessions. Oh, something that I like about these critical situations episodes is that it really shows you about what kind of your team has in these kind of late clock situations. Maybe if, you know, in the term of this basketball team, at least, if maybe you need a change of coach, because I've just seen some possessions that have been really, really bad here in this episode and in these late clock situations, and maybe brings to light the fact that this team might need coaching. I'm not going to say I'm going to use this episode to say that we need a change of coach. I mean, we have the worst roster in basketball. I'm not expecting, you know, greatness by any means. Trying to hold a small lead here against the 76ers. This will be our 4th and final critical situation game of the episode. Just for, you know, episode length's sake, I don't want to have, you know, a 50-minute episode. And so even if we have close games after this, this will be the final one as James Harden brings it to a 1-point game. Feeding Lowry inside, but he's blocked by Avdija. What a defensive effort by Denny Avdija. Back with the ball, Lowry taking the shot just off the mark. Embiid guarded by Duncan Robinson in the post. That's not going to end well for you, and we give up the 3. Philadelphia has taken the lead. Brown, clean look. Can't hit it either. Even if we're missing the shots, just like I said, I'd rather live and die by the guys that are actually good scorers, and I feel like that goes Sidney Lowry 1 and maybe Bruce Brown 2 as Hayward hits another 3. Now a 2-possession ball game. It's been all Philadelphia here. Lowry, too strong again. Under a minute left in the game. Harden gets his pocket picked by Jalen Johnson. We're going the other way. Sidney Lowry, wide open Bruce Brown. Hits the three. 2-point ball game, 33 seconds left. Need a stop. And Bruce Brown almost stole it, and instead we're going to start fouling. Okay. Would have been a massive steal from Bruce Brown. Harden hits both of his free throws, as he so often does. Off the timeout. We inbound to Lowry, and we call a second timeout. But that's kind of fine. We have one left, right? We probably only need one. And we call another timeout. 3 timeouts in 1 second of game time. Why is it so hard for these sports video games to not be brain dead with these late game timeouts? Lowry hits a massive 3, and it's back to a 1-point game. And the worst thing is our inbound play was the same all 3 times. After all 3 timeouts, we didn't even change anything up. I know nothing about coding, so it's hard for me to talk about why is it so hard for a game to, have good coding for late game timeouts. As Lowry hits another shot, but we really need a 3. But come on, how can it be that hard? Talking about stuff I don't know about again. Yeah, sure, but wow. I'm sure we'd love a timeout now with 10 seconds left. Being able to inbound, have a play from the side. Took us 5 seconds to get into the half court, and we just ended up taking a bad shot. We really could have used those 5 seconds. You could run a play in 10 seconds. With 5 seconds, you can't really run a play. Oh, man. I loved the effort of the team. Well, initially the effort was bad. We had the lead, and we just gave it up. But the effort to come back was just screwed over by the game's trash. Timeout situation. Lowry put up 30 in this game. We had 6 players in double figures. Fisher with 10, 4, and 4 in 19 minutes. Was good. I don't know why he played 19 minutes. But here we go. This would be the box scores of 2 more wins that we'd pick up in this episode. Much more that we've seen in recent episodes where it feels like we've won a game. This episode, we won 3. We did simulate a little bit further, and we'd end up getting a win against the 76ers, kind of making up for the trash games earlier on. But there you have it. You see Livingston back in. I did pull him back up from the G League. He was just getting super pissed, and I don't know. So he's back for the rest of the season. We've got one more episode left. We'll be back soon with another, and I will see you then.